All right, thanks, Kayla. So thank you everyone for being here for our December monthly meetup. I'm really excited to have you all here today. Really excited to be joined by some guests from the School Nutrition Association who are going to talk about Healthy School Meals for All bill. Really want to have these meetups be very interactive. So please, if you have questions, just raise your hand on Zoom, or if you've got your video on, just like raise your hand. Feel free to post anything in the chat, any questions you have. Really just want to make this as informal and interactive as we can. So first off, I'm going to share my screen a second. For those of you who are not familiar with the Iowa Hunger Coalition, we are a membership-based 501c4 organization. We have both individual and organizational members. We don't want cost to be a barrier for anyone to join, so we do have some kind of recommended membership levels, but really want people to be able to get involved no matter what they're able to contribute. We have a volunteer board of directors. I am the board chair. If there's any other, I know we have a couple other board members on the call, so maybe just like raise your hand or post in the chat. We have no paid staff members. We do have a contract lobbyists through Peterson Consulting, John and Cindy Peterson. And Cindy, I saw you were on the call. I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself quick or not.
Sure. John and I are here. For some reason, it won't let my video come on, but I'm moving a lot. So it'd be like the Blair Witch Project for you guys watching around. So yes, we are the contract lobbyists. I've been a few years. It's a challenge every year up there. This year, there are so many new legislators. It's going to be quite an educational year to get everybody up to speed, to know what we do and what the real need is, because I tend to see a lot of legislators in denial that don't believe we have hungry people. So that's always the hard thing, I think. But we're very happy to have the Hunger Coalition part of our portfolio. And please, anytime you come to Des Moines and want to come to the Capitol, look us up. We're there and be happy to show you what really happens there. And, maybe we'll see some of you on our day on the Hill. But anyway, any questions, don't ever hesitate to contact us. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. And we feel it's important to have John and Cindy on the Hill every day, being able to provide us updates, let us know what's happening. But we also realize that we're not going to be successful just by having John and Cindy there on the Hill. We know that we need a lot of different voices speaking up from around the state on these issues. And that's really what the Iowa Hunger Coalition does. We are an advocacy group. We use our collective voice to educate and advocate for policies that would eliminate food insecurity and build equitable food systems in our state. So that's a little bit about us. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, message us on Facebook, send us an email at iowahungercoalition@gmail.com. First off, we wanted to present IHC's 2023 state legislative agenda. We always have a pretty strong focus on SNAP. So we have a few different items on our, and this is not our full legislative agenda. There's a second page, just so you know. But as it relates to SNAP, we're specifically looking at updating the income eligibility from 160% FPL to 200% of the federal poverty level to better reflect the prevalence of food insecurity in Iowa. There's a few different kind of cost of living reports out there. One of those is the United Way's ALICE report. And just looking at that ALICE report, we know there is not a single county in the state of Iowa where 160% of FPL is enough to meet a basic survival budget. We also know that there's a lot of people who visit food pantries who do not qualify for SNAP because they maybe make just a little too much money, but still are experiencing food insecurity. So that is one of our priorities that we'll be working on this year. We're also asking for a $1 million appropriation for the Double Up Food Bucks program from the state. For those of you who are not familiar with Double Up Food Bucks, it's a program run by the Iowa Healthiest State Initiative. There's a lot of similar programs in other states, and essentially through Double Up Food Bucks, SNAP participants who use their SNAP benefits to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables at participating retailers can basically get a match and a voucher to then purchase more fresh fruits and vegetables. So it really is an incentive program to increase consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables by SNAP participants. With a $1 million appropriation that the state would put forward, the Iowa Healthiest State Initiative has $1 million in private funds that could match this, and then turn around to the USDA and get $2 million in matching funds through the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program. So a $1 million investment by the state would ultimately have a $4 million impact for the Double Up Food Bucks program. I think that we've got a good chance of seeing this done this year in conversations I've had with legislators. I think it's a really great bipartisan opportunity. So that is another one of our top priorities. And then for anyone who's paid attention for the past 5 or 6 years, will know that we've been playing a lot of defense too. So we'll continue to reject any additional administrative barriers in accessing SNAP. One thing that I have brought up when I've been meeting with legislators is right now we have food pantries, food banks, other anti-hunger organizations across the state breaking records of number of people that they're assisting. And at the same time, the number of people participating in SNAP in the state of Iowa is at a 14-year low. So what gives is what I want to know. So this is also our legislative agenda kind of continued. One that I am super excited about, and I'm so happy that we have the School Nutrition Association of Iowa here today to share more about, is providing healthy school meals for all. I think that there's a lot of momentum for this right now during the pandemic. Across the country, students were receiving free school meals, and it's also an incredibly popular policy with the public. And it's just the right thing to do. So I'm not going to get too much into that because I know we've got Billy Veach from the School Nutrition Association of Iowa, who in just a minute is going to share more about that. So we will get back to that. Another item on our agenda is addressing the root causes of hunger and food insecurity. And this really just means that we will provide our support to any policies that increase access to economic resources, including quality, affordable childcare, housing, utilities, transportation, and healthcare. We also have a point on our agenda to divert food from Iowa's landfills to people facing hunger and see how we can increase food rescue and recovery efforts. We don't have specific bill language for this, but really just want to be supportive of any efforts that would increase access to food rescue and recovery. And finally, we want to promote the purchase and distribution of locally grown fresh produce, whether that's by consumers, institutions, food banks and food pantries. How can we find policies that would promote the purchase and distribution of locally grown fresh produce? Any questions on the legislative agenda before I hand it off to Billy? I'm doing my best to monitor the chat, but if there's questions that I'm not seeing, please someone interrupt me.
Luke is really right. This is Cindy again. I just wanted to say that John and I are basically your ears on the ground at the legislature, and this is a real grassroots effort, and we really need all of you to weigh in and be involved with, legislative matters. So when Luke sends out a call to action, we really need to see that kind of support. So we're just basically ears on the ground that are telling you what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thanks. Aubrey, did you have a question?
I do have a question regarding the diverting food from Iowa landfills to people facing hunger. Given some of the recent media attention regarding food rescue and food donations, do we think there's any possibility that at the state level, there could be some policy regarding exclusivity agreements between organizations, or just how that language could look? Because I think we're all recognizing right now that some entities have claimed ownership of some food that they're not capable of picking up. So what possibilities are there, I guess?
So we haven't looked at any specific bill language like that. When we were working on our legislative agenda, we kind of had a few different ideas, but didn't really feel like we were in a place to have that bill language ready or anything like that, which is why it's more vaguely written on here. But I think that we would absolutely be open to exploring options. And Aubrey, maybe you and I should chat at another time to figure out maybe what those could look like. So thanks for that question. Any other questions?
Luke, is there any funding right now behind the Double Up Food Bucks?
Great question. So there is, the state has not had any skin in the game. So basically the funding right now is coming from private sources and that Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program match from the USDA. During the pandemic, there was $4 million from CARES Act funding that the Feeding Iowans Task Force directed to Double Up Food Bucks. And so we saw this great expansion of the program during that time. But then those funds went away. And so it kind of contracted again. What we're trying to do with this $1 million appropriation is fill that $4 million gap that saw the program expanded and really expanded the reach of the program to a lot more counties in Iowa, especially rural counties. So that's the goal, is having the state make some sort of appropriation toward the program, which would really help maximize matching funds from other sources as well. So I'm actually not sure how long Double Up has been a program. I want to say like 10 years. But right now the state is not currently putting any state funds into that program. Any other questions? All right, well, I am going to turn it over to Billy now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to welcome Billy Veach from the School Nutrition Association of Iowa to talk about the Healthy School Meals for All bill.
Yeah, so thank you again, Luke. I appreciate it. My name, again, Billy Veach. I'm the School Nutrition Association president. I'm also the director of ADM School District for the Nutrition Department. SNAI, first, let me just give you a little bit of who we are. We are a nonprofit professional organization representing we have about 1,000 members. Our board is devised of all school nutrition directors, professionals, lunch ladies, lunchmen, advocating for school nutrition. And in short, I say this all the time, we feed kids. And that's what I do for a living, is we feed kids. And during the pandemic, We were able to see some great benefits, I think, from serving free meals for all. And some of those were equitable access to school meals. Like there was no stigma of who's free, who's not, who needs help, who doesn't. Everybody ate. If you wanted a meal, it was there. And we were able to do what our job is, which is to feed kids. We also were able to see some administrative burden be reduced in our programs. Paperwork, filling out applications or trying to get parents to pay school debt is really hard. And we become, we're right back at it right now of being debt collectors. And it takes a lot of burden on us. And so we were able to see that burden not be there during the pandemic. And then and at the end of the day, kids are getting fed. And so they're learning in school, because I'll tell you what, right now, it doesn't matter how great that teacher is. If a kid is hungry, they're not going to learn, because they're only thinking about food and how they're going to get that next meal. We as adults know that that's true, because in a meeting, if we're starving, I'm thinking about lunch, right? So, or whatever my meal is going to be. That's what those kids are doing too. And so we were really able to see, and I think there's a lot of data that's coming from pandemic that we're still trying to gather to show that those things were evident. And there's a whole list of things, but that's primary of what the focuses are. So recognizing those beneficial impacts that free meals for all attains, there has been a great push to introduce legislation to continue free meals for all state level, kind of going at state level, because I feel like the federal government is just kind of being a pain in the rear. And so we've been trying to think about ways to do this at a state level. And states have been tackling this in different ways and bringing up legislation per their state to help offset that. And so right now, there are 3 states that have passed legislation permanently to offer free meals. And that's just so exciting to me. California, Colorado, Maine are the 3 right now. Many more are introducing legislation, and we're wanting to get on board with that. We're wanting to push and show that we advocate for kids and their nutrition and making sure that they get fed no matter what. And so we have, I will also say this is out of our wheelhouse. You're talking to nutrition people who are feeding kids and getting into legislation, getting into policies and learning how the government works has been quite overwhelming, to say the least. But we have an amazing group of people on our board and our committees that are just excited and feel a purpose when it comes to making sure this happens. And so we've been trying to step out of our comfort zone. We've put together a bill. We're trying to work with whoever will work with us to advocate and share with them kind of what that bill could look like for our state to just get that funding for our bill. And this bill it's going to ask the state to pay the difference, basically. So we're still want support from the federal government, but what we're asking for in our bill is to be able to provide the cost difference for those kiddos that don't, to qualify, like for SNAP, right? It's very low. We like SNAP because it's an easy download those kiddos' name. I don't have to do paperwork. Those kids just get a free meal. And, but it's so hard to get either qualified for it or get the kids in the program. And it seems to be the kiddos that don't qualify or for whatever reason, those are the ones that are really struggling. Those are the families that really need the support. And so we want to be able to advocate for them as well. And so that's what we're asking the state to kind of come in and help offset those costs in whatever way that we can. We would love to be able to take initiatives in the sense of supporting the school districts and making sure we can get as much federal funding as we can, like our CEP schools, things like that, and qualifying. But then at the end of the day, it's going to take money and support. And so that's really what we're advocating for. And Meg Brink is on the call with us today. She's my legislative chair on our board, and she's really been working the field hard and advocating hard with and trying to understand this process, which has been quite overwhelming. But we're really excited to be able to have this draft and work on that progress now of how do we get people to understand what we're trying to do and how many of our associations link up together, because we're in it to feed people. And we might just feed kids, but we all have a passion about feeding people. And I know that others do as well. So we're just trying to figure it out. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, Luke.
Thank you so much, Billy, for sharing. Does anyone have any questions at all for Billy about the Healthy School Meals for All bill? Otherwise, I did just want to mention, oh, sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
I just wanted to know, is the bill being drafted? Is it at LSA, and who is the sponsor of the bill? Are we that far yet?
Meg might be able to help a little bit. I don't think we have any sponsors quite yet. I think there's some logistics still in that.
Okay. Cool. And then also, there's also the issue, if I'm not mistaken, that schools can't deny a child a lunch, and there's many school districts that are way in the hole because there's no support to help them. Is that correct?
Cindy, that's absolutely correct. When we met with the governor's team, that was one of the things that we brought up to them was, you know, there's this law of no shaming. So a kiddo comes up and they have a meal, I can't deny them. I can't, you know, I charge their account and their account goes negative. And those families, I have a $10,000 debt. I was zero. I was able to get it down to zero during the pandemic and get my finances under control. But now, you know, we've only been halfway through the school year and I'm at $10,000 in debt. And you can't do anything about that because, I mean, if parents don't pay, they don't pay. And at the end of the day, that money affects districts, affects all of us. And it will affect the education part as well. So we were trying really hard to push that, it's not just negative meals. This is going to hurt our school budgets.
Were they aware of that?
They were aware of it. They were going to look a little bit more into it because it was one of those bills that had no funding or no support to it. It was just basically, you know, a Band-Aid to what they thought was an issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Meg, did you want to share anything more?
Sure. Just in regards to the sponsorship. Sorry, I'm trying to get my stuff together. We've been working closely with Representative Eisenhart. He has previously put out a bill to eliminate the reduced price category that did not go anywhere. This was quite a few years ago. But we've shared the bill draft with him and his staffer, David Epley. And they have spoke with a representative-elect, Sammy Sheets, that might be interested in co-sponsoring the bill. So that's where we're at so far, but I would love to reach out to every representative, have discussions with them, and I would love to see folks on both sides of the aisle supporting this bill. So we just need to keep having conversations and continuing to educate folks about what we're doing, where the barriers are, where the holes are, and patch them up and move forward.
Thanks, Meg. And I will just say it'll be really important to get bipartisan support for this to see it passed. I anticipate that the first question we're going to hear is what's the cost? And I know that SNAI is working on that. I also, in conversations we've got this piece on our agenda to raise the income threshold for SNAP up to 200%. This could actually help reduce the cost of a Healthy School Meals for All bill, because if people are then eligible for SNAP and participating in the program, they are going to be covered by the federal government for those free meals. So there's actually some interplay between a couple of our agenda items, and hopefully we can get them both done, and that can be part of how we can bring down that cost for the state of Iowa. Any other questions?
Luke, you had mentioned earlier that SNAP participation in the state of Iowa is at a 14-year low.
Yes.
Do we have any idea why? Is it the administrative piece of it?
I mean, I can only speak anecdotally, and anyone else, please feel free to chime in. But what I have heard from people who even qualify but don't participate is they've been told that they're only eligible for the minimum benefit, which is $23 right now, and don't feel like it is worth the time and hassle to apply and recertify. I think for some older Iowans, there continues to be the issue of stigma and not wanting to be on a public assistance program out of feelings of pride. I don't know. I guess I don't know why is how I would answer that. But I think some of the barriers for accessing the program ultimately leave people feeling like it's not worth it. Aubrey, do you want to comment on that?
I don't have a comment for that. I have another question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was wondering about some of these bills, you know, whether it's the lunch or even the double up food bucks. There's been talk about trying to limit what families are able to purchase with SNAP dollars. Has there been any discussion about what happens or what the process would look like if a bill is put forward that, you know, appropriates money for something we want while also combines it with taking away choice from families, how to navigate that?
Yes, great question. Thank you, Aubrey. So in conversations that we have had with some legislators, we've heard that the House might be working on a bill that would combine a $1 million appropriation for double up food bucks with nutritional requirements for SNAP, specifically banning the purchase of candy. And where the Iowa Hunger Coalition stands on this is that we are going to fight to have that piece removed. I can't speak for all anti-hunger groups on how they're going to approach this bill, but this is something we have talked about as a board of the Iowa Hunger Coalition. And if they're trying to find a compromise there between factions, we have committed that we are going to fight to get that that candy ban, as we're calling it, removed from the bill. What I will also say is there have been multiple states over the past decade that have attempted these type of policies, and there has not been a single instance of the USDA approving a waiver to do so under Republican and Democratic administrations alike. So I think our position as the Hunger Coalition is where, looking at the evidence, we know that incentivizing the purchase of healthy food is the way that we should be going and not taking a restrictive approach. And so that is going to be our messaging at the Capitol if we do see a bill come up. We also don't know. We've heard it's going to be limited to candy. We don't know if there's going to be other things included. We haven't seen a final bill. I think there's a lot of logistical issues there too, and thinking about how this would be implemented at retailers, especially those who work across multiple states and having a separate, you know, basically checkout system just for the state of Iowa. So there's a lot going on there. We've been having those discussions. We're hopeful that we can get the double up piece passed without some of these more restrictive pieces. So great question, Aubrey. And Katie, another great comment I saw in the chat. How do you define candy? because there's other products on the grocery shelves that are not candy that when you look at the label and compare them, they'd be hard to spot the difference. So yes, another great point.
Just to speak on that a little bit from the school nutrition standpoint, when the 2010 Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act came out and it was implemented in 2012, there was a lot of changes that happened in schools in regards to items that we can offer as a la carte, being smart snack compliant. We have to run all those products through a calculator to make sure that they're so much saturated fat, so much sodium, so much added sugar. And we are anticipating even more restrictive expectations effective July of next year in regards to our meal pattern expectations. So it's tough for us because we have such restrictive expectations on the child nutrition program side of things that does not align with the rest of the federal government nutrition assistance programs. But I could see, like, you talk about candy. Yeah, exactly. How do you define candy? You know, what's a healthy candy and what's not a healthy candy? And it's just the amount of red tape that we deal with on the child nutrition side of things. It would exacerbate that significantly for the supplemental nutrition assistance program as well. And it makes it really, really tough to be able to have good competition for us among vendors because of all of these restrictions. So just want to make that comment.
Thanks, Meg. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a question, and this is not necessarily, it could potentially be legislative, but I'm just wondering from the school nutrition folks with the recent local food for schools funding to purchase products locally and then have that for schools. There's the same local food purchase agreement for food pantries and meal sites. Is this something, I know that's something I've wondered about, is if the federal government or state government is putting dollars towards being able to purchase food, if programs like this are, you know, obviously there's more work involved, but having more dollars available to purchase locally, how's that experience been for you?
So, good question. I know, like, the money's great in the sense it's been beneficial to help us like buy locally, and obviously here and there's a lot of trickiness trying to getting places we can buy locally, and there's a lot of rules with how we spend the money and how we can allocate it for particular things, and it makes it a little bit more challenging. I'm thankful for the funds. But I will also say this, because I think this weighs heavy on me, because it's like, I'm thankful for the money, but if we could put that money towards feeding all kids, like I would be okay with that. And I don't think any nutrition program would say, no, I would really rather have that money rather than feeding all the kids, because at the end of the day, that's really what's supporting our programs, and we're feeding our kids, and we saw that benefit of it. So as great as, and I don't want to like hash that it's not been great, it's good, and it's helping our program. But just like with the negative balances, I can't use any of my funds to pay off negative balances. It's not allowed. And so it really doesn't matter. So I'm still struggling. But if we were able to allocate some of that money, that would be great. And of course, you know, buying locally, we're all trying to do that anyways. And there's a lot of great USDA grants and funding out there that we're all trying to work with and use so we can buy more locally, because we absolutely feel like that investment in our community is, you know, is important. So it's kind of a little all over for me on that one.
If I can add to that as well, I believe the local food purchasing cooperative agreement, I believe it was 2.1 million that was allocated to Iowa for that purpose. And it's definitely a balance of, there was the way that we can access this food. So in last year at this time, they had just wrapped up the Iowa Farm to Table Task Force. And that was a 3-month series where they were basically analyzing what the barriers were that existed in the state of Iowa to be able to get local foods into schools. And the big problem that we have is that there used to be an outlet to be able to minimally process fruits and vegetables, primarily vegetables, with Iowa Choice Harvest. and that is no longer an option. So it's challenging for the operations that we work in. I shouldn't say I do not work in an operation. However, I work for a lot of operators, but the operations aren't always necessarily set up to be able to accept 40 pounds of sweet potatoes to be able to process them into an end product. So we really need to have an outlet to be able to minimally process these items. And perhaps you guys experience the same situation. I think Matt Unger, I think he might have been on that task force. And he had mentioned about having very large, receiving very large pounds of beef and being able to break that down into a smaller portion for end users. We deal with the same issues, just in a little bit of a different format, but we don't necessarily have the support within the facilities that we're working in to be able to get those products processed in an efficient manner. But
Thank you
we're
for
also very thankful for the funding.
Yeah. No,
Well,
thank you
and
for
that-
sharing that, Meg. And I will just say real quick, this is why we as the Iowa Hunger Coalition have a focus on food systems, because we realize how interconnected, issues of food insecurity are with distribution and processing and growing food. So thank you for that comment. I really appreciate that. Aubrey?
I was just going to throw out there, I know one of my dreams for the upcoming budget, if you've looked at previous state budgets, they allocated $3 million to renewable energy infrastructure. Again, if there was budget allocation to invest in building infrastructure to do that processing, because those are definitely it's a huge gap, and there would be a lot of benefits building great jobs in communities and making it so that more of that food could go to places. But yeah, it's definitely, the system is not set up for that to be successful right now.
With the last session of the Iowa Farmers Table Task Force, that was the final ask, is that we need to have infrastructure to support this. We need to have an outlet for these. We can grow the food. We need to be able to get it somewhere to minimally process it. And I don't know where that ever ended up, but does anybody know?
Nowhere.
Yeah.
I'll say it.
Unfortunately, that happens a lot with task force. Is that we see same thing with the childcare task force. They took two things that were like the least inspiring policies and ignored the rest. So, but it gives us something to point to, is that like, look, your task force came up with this recommendation. So what are you going to do about it?
Well, and I think, something that hasn't been talked enough about is what existing infrastructure is in communities that could be reconfigured. I think rural communities, we're seeing, there's a lot of folks that are leaving, and not all of this has to be built from scratch, but really, I think looking at how could our state government help, revitalize some of this with some minimal investments and minimal in the sense of like state government budget, not minimal in regards to like our budgets, but investments there. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you all. I am loving this discussion. We do have less than 20 minutes left, and I did want to have some time for folks who are on the call, if you're interested, to provide any updates of what you're seeing right now in your organization and your community as it relates to hunger and food insecurity. So I will just kind of open the floor for anything you'd like other folks from across the state to know. Like Billy, you mentioned your $10,000 debt. Just what are folks seeing in their community? Also, like if there's any cool projects. I saw someone post in the chat about that specialty crop block grant. So I'll just open up the floor. Feel free to post in the chat, raise your hand, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Locally here, our Des Moines Public Libraries just shared 2 new community refrigerators that they set up and launched. So we're exciting to see more community refrigerators around the area popping up, and have really found that partnering with local libraries is a tremendous partnership for everybody, especially as we're starting to see, this time of year when school's not in session, that's where a lot of kids who don't have childcare end up. And so having food options there has been really, really great.
I'll piggyback off of that, Aubrey. We've had the fortune of having a community fridge located at our local library in Coralville, and we're having a really hard keeping it stocked. So it's been a major challenge. It's clearly working really well, and it's, as Aubrey mentioned, it's a space that's really accessible for not just kids but all ages. So we're really happy about that partnership. And I'll just share too, we are busier than ever, as many pantries are across the state. Our home delivery program's broken new records this past month. But on kind of some happy, fortunate news, we'll be opening our new facility on January 21st, and really thrilled about that. That gives us so much more opportunity to bolster our food inventory. That's where we're really constrained right now. So looking forward to that. And again, feeling very fortunate. It's been a lot of hard work, and it'll be a new luxury for us. So we're excited.
Thanks, John and Aubrey. Angie, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, my name is Angie DeWard. I'm the president at Kate Mitchell PTA in Ames, Iowa. We're one of the 5 elementaries, public elementaries in Ames, and we've got over 40%, free and reduced lunch program rates. And so, like you said, that the free lunches have been, the past couple of years have been pivotal. But for us, what we're also seeing is, pride, different reasons for why people don't sign up for that. So we've got hungry kids, and then we've got large stretches of day in the morning and in the afternoon when kids don't have enough food in their bellies while they're waiting for lunch or waiting to go home. And so teachers have been providing snacks out of their own pockets for years and years and years without us knowing it. So what we've been trying to do, at least at our elementary of the 5, is to try and get local organizations to donate food, or donate money for snacks, and we go buy them at Sam's Club. And so we've been successful using, fraternal organizations and corporations to donate, but it's a lot of work. And so, I contacted the school board. We don't have funds in a large community, and we're one that's fairly affluent, and so it's really it's not just lunches, it's not just breakfast. There is just this whole swath of the day when these kids are hungry and unable to learn. And so I do think there are some things that we can do locally, but it's just so much work and so much investment that it's great that you're doing this to try and help bridge that gap.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Angie. Anyone else? I'm fine with awkward silence. I'll maybe.
If I could speak a little bit, I'm Robin Munson from the Clay County Hunger Coalition in Northwest Iowa. And we're a new young group here. We just kind of started. And we started because I do work at the library here, and the library got a grant to put in a fresh food pantry. We started in the summer, and that was collecting food from local people that had gardens and having them bring in their extra produce that they had to our library. We found that people were thrilled to do this because they didn't want to see their stuff go to waste after they couldn't give it to any more of their friends or family members, and they're happy to give to the library. Then we started the coalition. It just kind of blew from that, and then we decided to keep the pantry open throughout the year, which we're just getting donations and stuff. We don't ask any questions for people coming in and taking the food. It's just free for anyone who wants it. So we're not able to get anything from the Food Bank of Iowa because of that. But with the coalition, we made a pamphlet trying to get all the other organizations that are doing good things with food insecurity in our area. Just getting a pamphlet of all of the different food pantries and different things that we have in town to help people out, and getting that organized and handing that out to people has been a big benefit to everyone. it's just, as far as in the schools and stuff, what I've been seeing, I've been here for maybe 2 decades or so. And it started out with maybe 20% people on free and reduced lunch. And now we're at 50% of our children on free and reduced lunch. So it is getting worse where we're at, and it is harder to get food. All of them are commenting on, all the pantries and places that we have here are commenting on how hard it is to keep their shelves stocked.
Thank you for sharing, Robin. And I know that, I think that is being experienced across the state right now. Last call. If you've been sitting here like waiting for a moment to hop in, now's the time.
I'll put it out there for anybody. I think what's been most, I said it in the chat, but what's been most beneficial for us in getting some of these fridges going, especially in libraries, is having fellow library directors share their experience. So it doesn't mean anything for me to come and say, oh, it's right, it's, totally works well. But what made the biggest difference was having someone who has the same experience and, for them to be able to answer questions. So if anyone would like to have, be connected with, Mary is the person at the Perry Library. The Granger Library, if you follow their Facebook page, is rocking it. They got a fridge and now they are going out and getting a ton of food to put in it. So there's definitely some great examples. And while it's not for every library, that's fine. I think getting a library on board would be a huge benefit, especially I think over this time of year is a good reason, kind of reminder that libraries are central parts of communities. Everyone goes there. It's where all the resources are. Making food accessible there too is a win-win.
Thank you, Aubrey. And I will just say, Aubrey's done a lot with community fridges and is happy to talk too. So reach out to her if you've got questions. All right, well, I think we're going to kind of wrap up. There are a few things I do want to share. So kind of ways to stay engaged with the Iowa Hunger Coalition. I'm the chair, so I got to plug, become a member. We are a small and scrappy board. We don't have a ton of finances. We appreciate any donation that you can give through a membership. Again, we don't have a kind of requirement of an amount. Really, it's whatever you can give. We have some recommended donation levels, which is $50 for a year for an individual member. I think it's $1 per or $100 per $100,000 of your budget if you are an organization. But again, we don't want cost to be a barrier for anyone to get involved. So please consider becoming a member. You can join a committee. We have 3 different committees. We have our policy committee, our membership and outreach committee, and our communications committee. If you're interested in joining any of those, reach out to us with an email. I think we've got some of those already scheduled. So feel free to reach out and we will loop you in there. It's a great way to get involved with IHC. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you visit our website, which is iowahungercoalition.org, there will be a pop-up that immediately when you get to the page to sign up for the email newsletter. That is the best way to stay informed during the legislative session on getting action alerts. So please sign up for our email newsletter. Like us on Facebook. We do try to share updates on there. I will say we're not as probably active as we need to be, but I'm working on it. And then if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email at iowahungercoalition@gmail.com. I do want to share one tool that we have on our website called the Snap Map. And it provides the most up-to-date SNAP data on a county level basis. So you can look at your specific county, you can select multiple counties, and it will tell you how many individuals, households are receiving SNAP, average household size, the total SNAP benefits, average benefits, the estimated economic impact. We don't have November numbers up yet, but we should be getting them in the next day or two. Typically, the state posts them on the 20th. So that should be updated fairly shortly, but just want to put a reminder out that we have this tool available, and that data is just pulled directly from the state reports that are put out on a monthly basis. Also want to say thank you for joining us for our first monthly meetup. We plan to do these every month. Our next one will be held Wednesday, January 18 at 10 a.m. We also, I will just say this, we kind of picked an arbitrary time, hoping this worked for people. We do have a post-event survey that I will post in the chat here in a second. We would love to hear any ideas that you have for topics for upcoming monthly meetups. I think this is kind of a format we want to stick with like a featured topic to take up half of it. Want to have time for open discussion and people sharing updates as well. So if you take that survey, please take the survey first, and then share your ideas of future topics that you'd like to hear about, or maybe if you've got a project you'd want to share about. I feel like we might have something on community fridges in the next couple months, just based on the discussion today. So take that survey, and I'll be sending this out to people who registered too, but weren't here. There's a chance that we might change this standing time, but currently we're looking at Wednesdays, third Wednesdays of the month at 10 a.m. At our January meetup, we're going to be focused on some kind of basics of advocacy with your legislators, some tips on having a conversation with legislators and making the ask. So stay tuned for that. But just wanted to say thank you all for being here. I am going to quick post that link in the chat, sorry, to the survey. 1 second.
Hey, Luke.
Yeah.
This is Dan. Hi, everybody. I'm the treasurer of the coalition. And just if you would like to join, you can go to the website and easily put your donated membership dues in there.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. And we, like I said, we don't want cost to be a barrier, but our success does rely on our funding as well. So please consider becoming a member and joining the coalition. All right, well, if no one else has any kind of last thoughts to share, thank you all for joining. I will be sending out a recording of this. We'll post it on our YouTube account and make it available for anyone to watch afterward. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope to see you at our next monthly meetup. If you're going to be at the Capitol at all this winter and spring, please shoot us an email. I'd be happy to meet up and chat. And yeah, thank you all. Stay safe. Please be careful out there in the next few days with this winter storm, and hope everyone has a happy holiday season and happy new year. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.